Hello and welcome back to Glitterature Alley. I'm Too Tight LaTruck, and oh my bard, we have another Shakespeare episode for you, but this time not the sonnets necessarily, or not solely the sonnets, but it's a tag where I will be answering questions about Shakespeare that originally was constructed by Libby Stevenson, and I'll include that original questionnaire below, but Hannah from Hannah's Books originally asked me to do a separate Shakespeare questionnaire and based on a video game or some such thing, but I'm just not cool enough to understand exactly what those prompts are all about, so I've gone with the simple and clear choice offered by Libby Stevenson that Hannah also offered for me to do. So let's jump right in. The first question is, what was your first exposure to Shakespeare? And my first exposure to Shakespeare was Romeo and Juliet in 10th grade English. Yes, even 5,000 years ago they had 10th grade, and you know, it wasn't 5,000, it couldn't have been more than 300 because Shakespeare was 400 years ago. So Romeo and Juliet was offered to us, and I didn't really understand much of it. I thought it might have been about sex, but I wasn't at that stage yet to really think about that. So although everyone seemed to go gaga over it, I wasn't really sold on it. I did my assignments and moved forward and didn't really think much more about that for a long while. And then, of course, I came to a conversion much later on. The second question is, which Shakespeare plays and poems have you read? Well, which poems have I read? I do a sonnet series, and I've obviously read the first 30 because I've presented the first 30. And I've done numerous lip syncs of actors reading Shakespeare's sonnets. So I've done quite a number of those. I haven't gotten through all 154 yet, and until I can actually lip sync it or present it as a class, I can't say that I know it in my deepest, darkest places, but I forge forward, and I'm hoping to get to all 154 of them one day or another. And as far as the plays that I've read, I printed out a nice little copy of the index of the Oxford Shakespeare, and I'll just tick them off. I've read The Tempest, Measure for Measure, The Comedy of Errors, Much Ado About Nothing, Love's Labour's Lost, Merchant of Venice, As You Like It, The Taming of the Shrew, The Winter's Tale, The Life and Death of King John, The Tragedy of King Richard II, the first part of King Henry IV, the second part of King Henry IV. I may have read Henry V too, but I don't really remember. The Tragedy of King Richard III, Romeo and Juliet, Julius Caesar, Macbeth, Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, who one time I had a student hand in a paper to me called Hamlet, the Prince of Darkness, not recognizing that she had made an error, but that's a different story. I've also read King Lear, Othello, The Moor of Venice, Antony and Cleopatra, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. So I guess a little bit more than half. I've got a lot of work to do, I have to say. And of those that I have read, I can't remember some of them. So have I read them? Yes, I've read them. Do I remember them? No, I don't remember. Can I talk about them? Of course I can talk about them. Give me a drink and I'll talk about anything. I'll pretend like I know what I'm talking about, and until I'm caught out, nobody need be the wiser. The third question is, which have you seen either on stage or in film? And again, I'll just tick them off. I did see The Tempest. I saw a very good performance with Mandy Patinkin down at the Classic Stage Theater in New York. Much Ado About Nothing, there's a nice version of David Tennant and Catherine Tate doing that I think is available on YouTube as well. The Merchant of Venice, that was the one with Al Pacino, I think. I did see that. The Taming of the Shrew, I've seen a number of them. the life, no, the Tragedy of King Richard II, I saw at BAM, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and it was okay. It was pretty good. I mean, I like the play, but I don't particularly. It was a little bit. It wasn't the best production. King Henry IV, the first and the second part, I think those are the Kenneth Branagh did both of those films, and I used to really love Kenneth Branagh, but I don't know, sometime around Frankenstein he sort of soured for me, and his Hamlet just breathed way too much, and I never went to see that. But Romeo and Juliet, of course, I saw the Franco Zeffirelli one, and Julius Caesar. I did go to see Julius Caesar, and I hated Julius Caesar. I read it before I went to see Julius Caesar, and when I read Julius Caesar, I hated Julius Caesar. I'm not a fan of Julius Caesar. Perhaps I'm missing something. I'm sure maybe the fifth time around I'll see something worthwhile, but I found it boring, and I don't know, maybe I just wasn't, maybe I was reading it too quickly, or maybe the cast wasn't what I thought it should be, or the production was in modern day costumes, and I don't know, it just felt like a big reach for me. So I have yet to see or experience Julius Caesar in a way that I can really appreciate it, the way that I'm told I should appreciate it. I've seen a couple of versions of Macbeth. I've seen a couple of versions of Hamlet. The best one that I ever saw was at Western Michigan University, where Tony Hummerkhauser, a friend of a friend, actually he's a friend of mine now, was the Hamlet, and he came out with this big huge necklace, and I called him the Fresh Prince of Denmark. It was actually the best performance that I've ever seen of a Hamlet play. I didn't see the David Tennant one. I saw bits of it. It looked okay. I did see Jude Law performing it live, and that week I was in a restaurant with a friend of mine here in New York, and someone walked in, two guys walked in, and they were very cute, and I thought, oh, is that my neighbor? I know him from somewhere? And he sat down right next to us at the table, Jude Law and his friend, whoever he was. And of course it's New York, so you don't want to make a big scene. So I simply texted to my friend, Jude Law on your right, and went on talking, and she had not heard her phone go off. So I said to her, I think I heard you have a text, and she picked it up, and she looked to her right, and there was Jude Law. So that was somewhat exciting, and has nothing to do with Shakespeare, but he was in town playing Hamlet, and he did a pretty good job. Actually, the Ophelia in that was one of the better Ophelias that I've ever seen. Not an easy role to play. I've seen a number of versions of King Lear, and I've also seen the Kurosawa film Ran, which is apparently an adaptation of King Lear into a different sort of thing. It's a Japanese film. If you haven't seen it, you should. And also, if you've never seen, I think it's a Jim Sheridan movie called The Field, which doesn't necessarily automatically seem like an adaptation of King Lear, but I propound that it is. It's got Richard Harris and Brenda Fricker, and it's an amazing film in its own right. Watch it, see if you see what I saw. See if you see what I saw, and that it could be an adaptation of King Lear if it's placed into 1920s Ireland in the countryside. Even if you don't see that, you'll still thank me. You can thank me later for having recommended it. I did see Othello. I think I saw Anthony. No, I did not see Othello. I did not see Antony and Cleopatra, I mean. And I saw A Midsummer Night's Dream. I've seen a couple of different versions of that, and it's quite good. I love it. So, I have to be careful because sometimes I skip over questions. The fourth question is, do you have a favorite edition of the complete works of Shakespeare? And I currently have about 5 different editions of the complete works of Shakespeare. There's the William Kittredge version, which is actually 3 separate volumes, but it's in a box set, which I quite like. There's the Riverside Shakespeare, which I, cut my teeth on, so to speak, and that's my go-to because it's all in one volume. I would like a Norton Anthology paperback, if there is such a thing. I would like just a big, huge, clunky paperback complete works of Shakespeare. And if the Norton Anthology puts one out, I'm going to get that, and maybe that will become my favorite edition. I've got a couple of other editions at home, but I haven't really had a chance to bond with them, so they're not on my list of favorites at this point. What is your favorite comedy? Well, I would have to say The Tempest, because The Tempest is a comedy. Things, people get married at the end. But it's also quite a dark comedy, and it's very moving. In the production that I saw, I did end up crying. Surprise, surprise. But it was really quite wonderful, and so I would have to say that that's my favorite comedy. What is your favorite history? I don't really know. I haven't gotten into the histories. I guess if Richard II, it's classified as a tragedy, but maybe one of the Henry IVs, both, because Falstaff, etc. But I'm not really well versed in the history, so I'll have to go with the Falstaffian character in Henry IV, 1 and 2. What is your favorite tragedy? Now, it's a tie between, or it used to be a tie between King Lear and Hamlet, but really and truly it's Hamlet. I don't know what it is about that play, but I just love it. King Lear is wrenching and beautiful and troubling and fulfilling in the cathartic sort of way, but Hamlet is even more so. It's more nuanced, it's more bawdy, and has a lot more filthy lines in it, which, I'm a pervert, so I like that. But I would have to say Hamlet. And also the idea of someone who thinks a lot and maybe thinks too much floats my boat. What is your least favorite play? Well, I think I've covered Julius Caesar. Which play would you want to direct? And again, I will have to go with Hamlet, because I know people complain that it's a very long play, but I speak very slowly and I have a very low pulse and a very low blood pressure. I'm barely here. So I would direct a 5-hour-long Hamlet where everything, because sometimes I see Hamlet doing his soliloquies and he's rushing through them, for the drama of it all, etc. But I really would like a slow, plodding, real-time version of Hamlet where he's really just thinking it through, and everybody else is too. And there are moments where he's antic with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and with Ophelia and fight scenes, etc. But I really would love a really long, slow, contemplative version of Hamlet, and I'd do the whole thing in it. Wear a diaper or something, because you're not going to want to leave your seat for anything. You want to see it all the way through to the end. Which play, this is question number 9, which play, oh, did I just do that? Which play would you like to direct? That was Hamlet, yes. Which lesser-known play do you think deserves more attention, or which lesser-known play are you most excited about? Well, I don't know. It's lesser known to me because I know I should have read it, but I have not. I've heard good things about Cymbeline, and I think that's the one that I will read next, because I've heard so many good things about it, and I know nothing about it. And so that's the, and I don't know how often it's performed either. I'll have to read it. And because, you know, after you read something, then it gets on your radar, and then you see, oh, Cymbeline, Cymbeline, Cymbeline. I mean, as if we could go to a theater at this time anyway, but maybe one day we will be able again to go to a theater and I will see Cymbeline. Or maybe if there's a film production that you know of, or a YouTube production, even if it's a 5th grade class doing Cymbeline, I'd love to see that too. So Cymbeline is my answer for that. A bonus, if relevant, what is your favorite play to teach or perform? And my favorite play is Hamlet, and when I was teaching, I did teach Hamlet, and I had the student who handed that in, the Hamlet, the Prince of Darkness. But it's also a really good play to teach because of the nuances in it, and also because of the sex in it. And I mean, when you're teaching a college class, this is a sophomore class, and it's a bit touch and go. You have to figure out what you can do and what you can't do. But when the students bring this up, it's much more, it's much easier to talk about when they bring up Gertrude having the hots for Claudius, etc., and why she would be the way that she is. It's just, it's a play with a lot of complicated relationships. And so that would be my play that I would teach. I'm going to have to take a little sip. Excuse me. I need a little more vodka is what I have to say. And perform, I guess that would be Hamlet too. And I'd play Ophelia. The young, fresh, virginal Ophelia. That would be me. Doomed. There you go. So those are my responses to the Shakespeare Tag. Thank you, Hannah, for thinking of me. And if any of you would like to do this, I recommend you go either to Hannah's page and see how she answered them, or to Libby Stevenson's channel and watch her. Until we meet again, remember, the world is full of wonder, and all you have to do is pay attention. Mwah.